You are in for an interesting ride.
Hello and welcome to another ETN short. This is again with our dowsing detective, Peter Ellis Vincent. You'll see why the Ellis is relevant in the film. So this is August 2023, and this was recorded right at the end of July 2023. And so I'm only just getting around to getting it all together. We're looking at missing people again. So this time Peter saw a program. This was something that he remembered back in 2008-9 about a little girl who was apparently abducted by a spacecraft, observed and witnessed by her mother, and he wanted to check it out. And then the young lady who was gone for 4 years at 14 years old, Alicia, and who came again, I think it was Salome that she went missing from. And she returned. And the interesting thing is that she had left a note saying that she would return. I don't know if she said there was a time frame to that. So we're going to look at what can be found from researching various elements linked with ET and linked with other attributes and elements that may bring something else to light or provide some other information about both of those young girls' disappearances. And then we're going to look at the Nordics and the tall whites. Peter hadn't heard of the tall whites before. I had. And so it was very interesting because Linda Moulton Howe had also asked him to check out and see if they could be found in a certain location. Now, Peter had done quite a bit of work on the Nordics before because at a place he goes on holiday, he noticed that there was an abundance on occasion of a group of people who really seemed rather too tall and very Scandinavian, unusual. So we're going to hear all about that and more. It seems that the disbanded biolocation team disbanded when Jeff Crockford, their leader, died sadly in 2020. And they are still working independently and sometimes catch up with one another. And they have found something really quite extraordinary out in space, like a huge, huge service station, galactic service station. Anyway, Peter will tell you a little bit more about that. So enjoy this 30 minutes or so, and welcome to another ETN segment. It's the 30th of July. It's 2023. I'm here with Peter Vincent, the dowsing detective and remote viewer, and we're talking about an old case, a cold case perhaps, about a young girl called Emily, 2008 we think, and this was an abduction.
To help explain what I'm trying to get at here, I saw a TV programme on abductions, I think it was Channel 4, and one of the children was called Emily. Her mother was driving her home. The mother got out the car to open the house up. The child ran off towards a light. The mother spotted this, and then all of a sudden the child was just swept up and is whisked away. And therefore there was this case about the child abducted. So I ask a question about this to my mind-to-mind contacts. And 3 times a year we can exchange a message with them out of the 16 symbols that goes all the way back to the ancient temples. All the symbols can be different shapes and sizes, but they all relate to the number values and the colours. I then go over the areas gradually and we pick up these message exchanges here, and he spelt out Emily the way that they spelt it out. Even the Y is the wrong way round, and the E can be either a C or an E. So I have to take that it's Emily. So they were actually saying that they got Emily. Here's the alphabet up here, you see. Those are the shapes that we agreed, and those are our shapes as near as, and those are the numbers of the valuation. The message exchange takes place between the 18th of Feb 09 and the 18th of March 09, when the craft goes and another one is on station, is always there until it's then replaced. And in this case, it would be August. This craft that gave these messages would then go probably on August the 18th, and then the third one in the year goes on November the 18th. That spells man. M for March, A for August, N for November. They're giving you a signal here. Man, they're communicating.
And you're saying, Peter, that these three occurrences 3 times a year, which happen always on an 18th of the month, have been happening forever?
Yes, I think so, with the temples, yeah. I've actually been recording them over time. The very first one I did, I asked them what they were, and they spelt aliens out their way. That's an A, by the way, and that's the L the wrong way round and the Y is the correct way round. But that's how they spelt it, not how we would spell it, out of the 16 symbols.
What date was that, Peter?
That's 23rd of October 05 to the 18th of November 05. And then this was the 8th of February 05 to the 18th of March 05. I asked them where they came from. So they spelt out on the 6th of VCYLIU. I regard that as Vishlu, as near as, but it's their language, not mine. But here, on 2000 October 04, they laid out a perfect Y for us to pick up. And these are all orbs or spheres, and they just appear in a shape and then they all go. We wanted to do Vishnu, so holding a pencil, doing a frontage page like you'd find in an atlas, we asked them, roughly they could show how the planet was. The land mass, the sea mass, and any sort of volcanic activity. And this is how they basically did this. I have to hold a pencil, I have to hold a pendulum, and if I go off course within the side plate area, the thing would stop spinning. Directly it respun, I knew I was going in the right area. This is in the Orion system, by the way. So this is probably the planet that they see is connected to the 3 planets or the stars of Orion. Basically, their image comes from the 3 volcanoes they've got in the ocean there. And that is what we see on that set of 3 cricket pitches that we were looking for the dog creature. Basically, here we've got teleportation areas, cities, space stations, and the way they live. I mean, it's completely different from the way we live. I've got it on colour here. Yeah. So here we've got a lot of different 16 symbol languages here. Most of them I picked up from other people's publications, but they didn't realise that they were all related in the number of the symbols that they had. That all these symbols relate to a number order and a colour order, and it's the colour that reacts with our sensory code. Because basically, we do have a few more colours and things above 16, because ochre is 16 for death and decay. Also, they try to lay out, on one occasion, exactly how many spheres they had, and they actually put the mothercraft down in dimension all over down the coast of America, like this, down into Latin America. And then we recorded the day that they laid them all down. The 30 circles plus the main craft were laid down to pick up, and then we could record the times that they disappeared, when they arrived and when they disappeared. They started exchanging signals with me. These were their very first bases on Earth here. Sort of laid them out, and they're all in the Orion symbol. They're in groups of 3, but you might have several groups of 3. You know, the Bermuda Triangle there is as plain as a pikestaff. You've got the area off Japan there, I think, the Indian Ocean or wherever it is down there, Australia and places like that. But also off the coast of Peru, because don't forget, ocean levels have gone up since the Ice Age, so therefore a lot of these sites were actually are now under the sea. Of course, if you engage with them, you can also get a craft named after you, I'm told. This one is Tilu PEV1. So there's a craft going around. Now, my middle name is Elias, so they actually put my name down here. E-L, the L the wrong way round there, L-I-S, 1. So it came out E-L-L-I-S, 1. They want communication, so we use the same communication colours all the time. You know, this has been going on for absolutely thousands of years, you know. This one came out Supper, so this is based on The Last Supper, S-U-P-P-E-R, and that came out between the 14th of October 07 and the 18th of November 07. When they've actually shown you the symbol, they then freely drift around, going over absolutely everything. So here's an example of them drifting around. And I just keep notes as best as possible on it. I don't spend all day on it. I just every now and again, twice a day, I'd go in and say, well, where are you now? And just drop. Here's another lot between the 14th of February 08 and the 18th of March 08. I didn't link them up, but I just actually put down the areas that they were sort of covering at various times. So,
and when you say we've got energy circles written everywhere,
are the spheres and these are the orbs and spheres.
So it's synonymous with these craft.
It is, yes.
Yeah.
In other words, because we can pick them up on what we call the crop circle code, you can pick them up in space and over Earth. So they're probably about 10,000 feet up, 20,000, because you're looking down on them for some reason, and you can pick them up and then you can follow them where they go. They always go north down to the south. The only time they vary is where I start over Australia, then they seem to go along the Antarctic. But they don't like the tip of South Africa. They don't like going over the area between the Congo and the tip of Cape Good. They never use other time. It's GMT. Greenwich Meantime is measured with a ley line that starts from Greenwich, goes through East Grinstead and then right round the world and comes back again. It's said to be about 6 foot thick, and you can measure it on a ley line code. When we had all the major powers, Russia, France, Germany, surely they would have put all their names in a hat and taken one out and said, oh, well, that's the winner. They'll have the time set at that period. But they didn't. It was set at Greenwich Meantime. And what is strange, that whereas all these things start over various set points, so like North America, South America, China, over Europe, which encompasses Russia and Australia, the UK has its own set starting point, and it's always either a vertical line or a horizontal line that starts over the UK from Ireland right across and then drifts down over France to the Bay of Biscay. There's something special about Greenwich Meantime and then the UK being involved in this. So,
with an introduction to one of the communication methods via the 3 times yearly visits by craft occurring March, August and November, spelling man, we pick up the story of Emily, the young child abducted and missing from around 2008.
a young girl that was abducted by a UFO in North America. I don't know whether it's in actually America itself or Canada. I viewed this just before February 2009, so it's probably sometime in 8. I got interested in this because as the filming shows that we've been picking up energy circles and messages.
When you say 16 symbols,
temple
we're
codes,
talking about an alphabet.
An alphabet, yes. Well, that's mutually agreed. Like all the temples had a mutually agreed symbol. So Egypt had theirs, south of France had theirs.
Let's see how this relates to
Basically,
Emily.
I coded Emily through their information here. So it's pink, white and silver for a female. She's not dead. Blue, orange, green and yellow, right? So I coded that, and then I went over the map of Orion, because she's never come back. I get a perfect response to that colour over the map that they showed me to extract a rough map of where they come from. If I come off, then the rods open. If I come back on it, they close. Now, to give you an example that's up to date, we have this strange case again in America, not far from Phoenix, which is a well-known UFO active place, called Alicia, who disappeared for 4 years. So I coded Alicia, so it's pink, white, silver, grey, green, brown, yellow and red. These colours were extracted from her photograph, which was published widely in the world press. Where can you go for 4 years, fed and board, clothed, educated presumably, and pre-advised that you're coming back? So I'm now going to go over this map to see if this responds like the other one. And there is no response whatsoever. So it's not Orion linked there. However, I then got the map out of the area near Phoenix, having got a code here. So it's near Salome, and I've got a pointer here that responds, right? So if I hold her code over that map there, because the maps hold every single image that you want in code form, there's an enormously strong response. So that's where she was in that area at a specific time, and then was found 4 years later from the borders of Canada. So there is a relationship between that area there, which I presume it could be tissue. It could just be DNA, matter that we're picking up. But there is some relation there. Now, what is interesting, these areas of Arizona are probably Indian territories, and also up near Manitoba, where I believe that were found, they are Indian territories as well. And we know from Skinwalker Ranch that that's an Indian area, and that a lot of these areas are in fact UFO related. Now, this abduction code is rather interesting, because although I haven't painted it up in colours, I have got the radionics number for it. So I'll just show you how this works over this young lady. Abduction, here we are, 13792126. 13792126. 13712296, and it responds. This young lady was abducted. Well, you could call it kidnapped. So the question is, what? If it's kidnapped, how was she kept for 4 years unnoticed? If she was abducted, it would have been taken into a wormhole, which is time and space related, so it wouldn't really be 4 years. As far as she experienced, it could have been 4 weeks. And then she's delivered back, and it's 4 years later.
With your abducted code, Peter, could this be a kidnap or abduction by humans, or is this solely to do with other intelligences?
It's difficult now to sort out what is human and what isn't. Breeding for so many years with us, with abducted people, they look very much like us, although there are differences, but you can pick up the differences in the DNA responses to them, because they have something that we don't have. The thing is that, so we've got the abduction code there. Now, the other question is, we have a code for an anomaly, because if they are here, then they can only come in an anomaly. So anomaly is 936 45 1 2 and 10. Don't forget, all these codes are given to me from them. So them is split up into various types. They're not just one form, there are many different forms. So therefore, is there an anomaly here on this map in Arizona? So 936451210, and I get a response. But likewise, if we're going on this planet here of Orion, surely we would be getting them there, because there has to be another side to this traffic. So 936451210, perfect response and across. So there are anomalies captured in that mental picture of that planet.
And when we're talking about anomalies, Peter, can you define that a little bit more for everybody?
Yes, I think if you look at something like the Sirius Stargate, where you go into a chamber and then into another chamber that's in a different time.
So it's a sort of confluence of time.
Magnetic stretching of time and space, okay. Yes. We know that they're experimenting earthly with these particles because, and I think these chambers are already in existence. They're in existence because if you have a time and space dimension, you have a spaceship that goes into a mountainside that you think is perfectly solid. But in actual fact, it is seen as particles going through particles in another time. And this I refer back to Dan's experiment with me in Hemel Park in Tucson, Arizona.
He did a remote experiment set up by you.
They wanted me to set up a meeting of a UFO in stealth on the park grounds, which I did. I gave them all the colour codes, past time, future time, present time, craft, engine drives, how you could detect people inside, uranium, all that sort of thing. And then it's all done to Greenwich Meantime, and sure enough, there was nothing there before, and then suddenly 1800 hours on the due date, it all came alive, and they were able to map this out. On the first occasion, the craft, I believe, was round, as a disc form. But then when we redid the experiment, I got this area mapped out in the same park. They said, well, we're feeling slightly unwell outside the area of this craft. Is it bigger than you think they've told you that it is? And I said, well, you would be talking about a dimension because at present they're in future time on that ground. I said, therefore, if you say there's more energy there and they're not in future time, then what's going on here? So I phone ET, I suppose you could say. I asked, is there a dimension within a dimension? Because after all, if they're in that dimension, in our dimension, that's already another dimension. And they said, yes. So I said, can I have the code, please, for that? And they gave me the code. I passed it over to Dan, who would have painted it up, and then gone back in and found that the thing was about 100 foot wider. And it was triangular shape. That craft was in several dimensions. So that's why these pilots, they think they see a tic-tac, but they're only seeing part of the craft in that dimension. The other part of the craft is much bigger in another dimension. And once we get our heads around that space is made up of multiple dimensions, that if you've got the art of crossing one dimension into the other, then you can actually cross it multiply. So I come back to the fictional thing of Doctor Who, which is well known on television as a cult programme, of where he's looking at an old blue London telephone box, police box, and he walks into it with his little magical key, and he's right in a spacecraft in another dimension inside, and it's huge. Yeah. So where did the idea come for that? I think there's a lot of this knowledge is already known, except that it's not in the general concept. So what I'm saying is, here we are worrying about climate change and whether we should have a petrol car or an electric car. Perhaps we should find out the technology that these things are.
We do know it. We've had it for years.
So, but actually get it into use, and then maybe we can cool the place down a bit.
Well, we can, but people have been stopped patents rather sequestered.
I mean, I believe that all Tesla's experiments that he was doing were swept up somewhere.
And many since.
I can remember a Blaze programme showing Phoenix Airport, where the control tower, there was this UFO spotted by the ground staff. They reported the control tower, were a little bit nonchalant about it, and then suddenly it shot right up through the cloud and burnt a hole through the clouds. Is that not the same airport that a member of the public wanted the toilet? So they got to a lift that said lose and went the wrong way down into the basement, and then saw an arrow pointing to the toilets in large letters. When they got into the toilet, they would have needed a stepladder to actually have used the urinal. He said this was a toilet built for extremely tall people.
And where was this again, Peter?
I think this was under Phoenix Airport, where it's a brand new airport that was built, and there's alien complex underneath it for very tall people, which actually now brings me to another subject, because these codes pick up people's DNA images from their photographs. It can say where they've gone. So if you remember, on a previous occasion, I was talking about a hotel that I stayed in overseas, where these extremely tall people would come in groups. And I mean abnormally tall people in groups. You expect to see the odd one now and again, but these were male and females coming in with a limited luggage. They'd roll in a group, sign in, and then disappear and never to be seen again in the hotel at all, and would just vanish. So I was very interested in this, and then I was sent some pictures of something called the Nordics that were very tall and very Scandinavian looking, which of course these people did. I thought they were a Swedish netball team or something like that, you know, but it wasn't. So I thought, well, I'll check on this. So I did a radionics code, and I found that they were coming in somewhere, then being bussed to the hotel, and then they would go out quite quickly via the airport, and some would fly north, some would go to Italy, and some would go to Egypt. And on one occasion, I actually noted an Egyptian Hercules aircraft on this airfield, which is nowhere near Egypt, it's the other side of the Mediterranean. And I said to the guys when I went in with my own bag, I said, "You're a bit off course, aren't you?" So I sort of had a little titter, you know. And so basically, I decided to follow one of these trails, and it took me to CERN. So I just logged this and didn't think anything of it. And then I thought, well, I'm going back to this area soon. I would like to see whether I could follow this up a little bit closer. So I thought, I'll paint the code up. So I did paint the code up. Here is a code for a Nordic, right? Pink, red, silver, grey, green, brown and blue. So I then decided I needed a map, a Google Earth map of CERN. I got Google Earth map up, and normally I would load a PDF down so I could then print off and send it on to people. It refused utterly to allow me to download the PDF. And here we have the CERN copy that in the end I had to take a photograph on my camera. What I did then on this map, because we now know we can go over maps with these codes, so I thought, I'll have a go at this. So I went over, and the photograph picks up an enormously strong response to Nordics in CERN. So I thought, well, this is interesting. So I sent a copy to Linda Moulton Howe, who's an interested journalist on such subjects. And she wrote back to me and said, can you look at the map and see if your responses are over certain marked areas on the map? I'd be interested in. And also, do you know if the tall whites are there? I'd never heard of the tall whites. So in the end, I got this map up and I looked at this. And I got a response to them over CERN antimatter in French. And I thought, is the God particle antimatter? No, it's not. That's something different. We're looking at the particle that binds space together, maybe. But antimatter, of course, you do need, because you can't go through space and destroy things in the front of you if things are in front of you at a speed beyond the speed of light. You need something to repel things. So we've often felt that the craft actually have antimatter in them. So basically, I have a code for antimatter. Whether they've actually found any, I know we have them on crash sites, the stains of antimatter response 1072485. So that's black, white, grey, orange, brown and yellow. And let's just see if there's any response to antimatter. I have to read them in my mind, you see, this is the idea of colours. You don't have to bother doing that. So 1072485. Yes, there's a response to antimatter there. So they're in French, they're telling you antimatter. Antimatter's responding. We have the Nordics there. So I thought, well, what are these tall whites? And I believe you know something about it. So I coded the tall whites: pink, red, grey, green, yellow and orange.
So
Thought,
these are the tall whites.
Well, tall whites, I'd never heard of them. I didn't know. She was the one who drew my attention to this. I suppose you could say that was very much the description of the people who walked into the hotel reception in bulk. Anyway, I'll just go over this. I'm not picking anything up for the tall whites. But present, anyway, on this map. They may have been there or may not be. Then I contacted you about this and you told me about this chap who was in the weather station in the middle of America. I went over America and could find only one response to tall whites, and that is the leg of Florida, basically in that area, down the NASA area down there. And nothing else at present. We've got the Nordics in one section, we've got the tall whites somewhat over there doing things. And then I thought, well, let's have a look. Map here of the young lady that was abducted, Alicia. Yeah.
So this is Alicia,
Who turned up.
14-year-old girl
disappeared.
who left a note saying she was going, but she would be back. And 4 years later, she's
come
walked
back
into
at
a
age 18,
police station. Where is this? Is this
this was in
America?
It's in Glendale's in Phoenix. The thing is, I just thought, well, we've got a code for tall whites, we've got a code for antimatter, we've got a code for anomaly, and we've got a code for Nordics. Let's just have a look. So there's nothing showing for tall whites. Nordics, clear as anything, respond over that map. And if I've got a potential base here, I would have thought, well, maybe they're there. No, nothing there at all. So let's have a look at antimatter and see whether we've got a response here. 1072485. No, nothing there. So then let's have a look at an anomaly. The anomaly, 936451210. 936451210, right over there. Right over that map of Arizona. So let's see if we got an anomaly here on CERN, because that's what they would have to actually create. 936451210. No, there's not an anomaly there. It's a magnetic thing. So there's an anomaly there, and she's disappeared. There's been strange things going on in Phoenix, in airports, and the Phoenix lights, as we all know. So what is going on here? Alicia, her code, pink, white, silver, grey, green, brown, yellow and red. Now, if she's been anywhere on that map, it will recall, because her stains will be there. So, look at that. There's a drag on it, and it wants to go over there. But of course, she's never been to CERN, has she? I mean, I wouldn't expect it to be there at all. And indeed, no, nothing there at all. But come onto this map, woo, dear, they just whiz round. So there's something on that map that relates to her, where she's been. Now, her Glendale's is only to the right there, and Phoenix is only to the right, or Salome is just there on the left. And it's all mountainous area. And they're notorious for holding things that we don't know anything about. They're always in mountainous areas. So basically there's something going on there. Now, let's have a look at Emily. This is the young girl who disappeared in 9 and is responding on the Orion system, the code response.
Right, so again, just for clarification, this is a 6 or 4 years old girl who went missing in 2008.
Well, before February 2009, because there was a television programme about it.
Okay.
May have been others, and the university psychology department was trying to sort this out. That the mother had taken her daughter back home. The daughter had run off, been seeing a light. She'd gone into the house, I think, and then the last thing she saw was her daughter being sucked up. So the thing is that she never came back. And the message I got from them on my 3 times a year message exchange was her name spelt in the way that they do it. So I've got the code for her here. There's nothing there at all. There's no draw there. There's no draw there, but if I put this map down here, is an agreed cross map. If any map, you can enlarge one of those maps on the floor by hand and enlarge it up, and you will transfer the signal and the contents of that map into the new paper map. So there is a whole science here that people don't understand. I will now go over this. This is Orion. This is a planet in the Orion system. And it's just crosses. And I know where it is. Basically, just there is where it's responding to, that area there. There's accommodation all the way around there and all sorts of things. We've now got new research to do because the scientists feel that there is a further planet that we haven't been able to find called Planet 9 or Planet X in the solar system. They can't find it. I raised this with Don, and Don said, well, Geoffrey Crockford was researching this. We found it on the hologram telescope.
So just to be clear, again, we're talking about research done with the now disbanded biolocation team, who are also not only dowsers but remote viewers also.
But remote viewers, and they use my codes for finding things, you see, because of dangerous substances and things. Now, they say that they actually, following that inquiry, which has only come up in the last week, actually did some more study, and that the Planet 9 is not in the alignment of our planets, but to one side of it, and it's beyond the helipause. But they've also found something else that they're going to work on in great detail. They have found something that they can only describe as an airport in space, servicing many different species with their own tubes coming out of the central for fuel, food, and other requirements. So this supports something that we found quite a few years ago when I found a crash site in Hertfordshire, not far from Geoffrey's residence, and he went out into this field and he said, I found something else most interesting. He said, I found what are the stains of an ancient temple with about 40 odd plaques in the ground. And he said, each one of these is a life form galaxy system, which has been recorded in plaques on the floor. What it boils down to is we may well be in a federation already, being helped and assisted, hence the Nordics in CERN and other underground complexes going on, because I mentioned about the airport where this guy went down to go to the toilet, and instead of going up to the toilet, the lift went down, it probably malfunctioned, and he went down to this passageway tunnel, and there was a toilet there, but he said you'd need a stepladder to get into it. Well, a tall white might be able to have got into it and sprinkled a penny, but the thing is he certainly couldn't, so he then got out and, without being noticed, and up again. That was on the TV, and that's not my making up, that's already been in the public domain. The trouble is that the public domain is extremely restricted, and if you know where to go looking, you'll learn an awful lot, and you start putting things together. What I find is colour can put these things together and can make sense like a jigsaw puzzle.
So just to conclude, we've got those folks that you saw in the hotel in the Mediterranean, those very, very tall, blonde, Scandi-looking people over in CERN.
Yeah, I followed their aircraft back from the airport and it went to CERN.
I know you followed them on several occasions, but we're not going to get into that now. But also, just to conclude about the tall whites, we haven't picked up the tall whites
not
except in Florida.
The trouble is this, that they can be here, there and everywhere. So I may have picked them up at the time when I was speaking to Linda Morton Howe about it, but the thing is they're certainly not responding there now. And I will double check that, just to be on the safe side. Also, has anybody noticed that the actual CERN is laid out in a rocket, where the car parks at the end are the exhaust of a rocket?
It looks like a long triangle.
Yeah, like a rocket. If you were to make a flying craft as a rocket, you've got a very long... couldn't make it any plainer, could you? I suppose if you disguise something like that, people say, oh, it can't possibly be, you know. But anyway, look, so we got the Nordics, extremely, extremely powerful response.
So we're going for the Nordics?
Right, there we are. Extremely strong response.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's any on the Orion system here. I mean, they have to be somewhere, don't they? So, nope. And nor are they in Arizona either. So now let's have a look at the tall whites. And no one colour code ever comes out the same as the previous colour code.
No.
It's almost as if the mind will not allow it. You know? Right, so there's none there. No, there's nothing there. But there's nothing to say they haven't left there and gone somewhere else. They don't have to be on there all the time. That's the point. And the Nordics may well leave there at some time. It's a question of whether you catch these responses as of that time. But somebody in there is responding to that code. I mean, what are they doing in Egypt?
I don't know. It's fascinating, isn't it?
And Egypt has got a very space-like layout, apart from the Great Pyramids and all the sort of research there. But they're expanding out to the east of Cairo into the desert, and you've got these enormous round complexes of buildings. And I mean, you could actually have a form in there which are contained within the roadway and the form, and nobody would ever know, you know.
Well, that's fascinating, Peter. Thank you very much once again. Okay.